So apparently it's not okay to have two different translations. But it's not okay for who? For the fans because they have more options? I don't think that's an issue unless you have to pay more for the game. For example, yeah, sure, Cyberpunk was a very broken game. But you had the option to play the game censored or uncensored. This was great if you wanted to stream your game or something like that. But it was awesome because you had the options to do it. You were not forced to play the censored version just because other people wanted to stream the game or because people don't want to see tits or the D. So having both options is great instead of just having the censored version, just like Sony wants us to have, and many other corporations. Why does a company have to tell us what we are allowed to see or not? Why don't we have the option? If we think something is too sexy or too violent, why don't we have the options to play that game or not? Why we only get the censored version? And now, because they see people don't like the censored version, they try to lie to us and they try to censorship their games before development, so that we no longer have the better option to buy it on Steam uncensored. So back to our story, the most affected is the Western localizers. Because let's be real, a lot of people will prefer to see the original translation, the more direct translation, even if it's not perfect. We already see a lot of Western translators doing a very bad job, but not because they don't know how to make a good localization, but because they feel they know better. Let's be real, a lot of Western stuff is being censored because they think they know better. It's like they don't want evil characters to exist anymore, or even good characters with bad personality. I mean, let's be real, the best stuff has a lot of controversial stuff. No matter if we talk about games, manga, movies, even music, many times the best stuff is the most fucked up stuff. Not always, but most of the time you want to see fucked up stuff. For example, in a video game, when you see the bad guy doing something very evil, it will motivate you to be even angrier, to want revenge even more. Or maybe you play the bad guy and you have to do a lot of fucked up stuff. And that's the idea, because you have the freedom to do whatever, to play with the player's feelings. But when you hear about Western stuff, you only hear about censorship, updating the good stuff and the entertainment for the modern times, and that's also censorship, or making content that doesn't offend people, that doesn't have bad guys or bad opinions, when your race or sexual orientation is more important than the story, stuff that nobody cares about but they force you to care about. Now let's see why a lot of people are fed up with these losers. I will not talk about all the stuff that they said, but we know that we had a lot of issues with translations in the past. So let's start with this boomer. And he says,
I clicked on this thing. I wonder how many people who aren't translators are going to bitch about the use of creative here, and it was basically the entire thread. Kinda glad my translation career is over because we have the most ungrateful fans in the whole goddamn world.
first of all, bitch, the opinion of the fans are the only opinion that matters. They pay for your product, they support you, and you only exist because of them. I'm not saying that fans are always right, but you don't talk about the crazy fans, or more exactly the toxic fans, that you can find in every industry. You talk about the ungrateful fans. And we should be grateful for what? You are getting paid, you don't do this for free. And I think the fans are grateful if you do a great job. But if you suck, if you're a failure, then it's not the fans. And this is why a lot of Western localizers are upset about this. Because companies will find out that the fans, that the consumers, the customers, the people who pay for the product will prefer the original, not your Western localizer point of view. And the company will find out that you can be replaced by an AI, and that AI will sell even more games because they don't have a Western localizer calling them ungrateful fans. Or even worse. Then Kevin says,
I want to see a list of all these games supposedly infected by the translators' personal politics epidemic. For as much as I hear alt-right gamers drop this accusation, I've literally seen it in person, which I realize probably means it's BS, like most alt-right nonsense. But
this came to a reply that said, Because the creativity usually sucks. Nobody wants to hear the translators' attempts at comedy or their political opinions. People want to know what the original said. Well, this ungrateful fan said something that is not right? Isn't the idea of the translator to tell the story of the original? When you buy a book, do you want to know what the writer had to say? Or do you want the version from the localizer? Because I'm pretty sure when I buy a book or a game or a movie or a manga, I want to know what the writer said, not the localizer. I don't care about the opinion of the localizers. I want the translation to be as close as possible to the original. This is pretty goddamn logical. I don't need to show you a list, I just need you to show what the daytranslation.com says about video game localization. And I quote, "Video game localization is the process of adapting your game's content to a target local's language, legal, and regional formal requirements as well as," and this is the most important part, "cultural sensitivities." Nobody cares about your cultural sensitivities. We don't pay money for your cultural sensitivities. This is not about alt-right. This is not about political or whatever. This is about the fans who want the original, don't want your bullshit. Let's read more about what daytranslation.com has to say. Video game localization cannot be accomplished without its other two counterparts, culturalization and internationalization. When I read contents from other countries like China, Japan, Germany, Spain, or whatever, I don't care about your culturalization and internalization. I only care about what message the writer or the developer wanted to send. If I read something from Japan, like a manga, I want their culturalization. If you are offended by their culture, or if you don't like what the writer had to say, then fuck off and don't translate it. Find somebody who will do a great job, not an idiot who will modify their work just because it's too sensible for them. It's not the cultural sensibility that they want. They are too offended. So it's very good that they actually say what culturalization and internalization means. Culturalization allows gamers to engage with the game content without cultural disruptions. Content culturalization is an important aspect of video game localization to make the game congruent and potentially relevant in the local culture. Your localized game should be sensitive to the target market, cultural belief system, history, religions, ethnicity, and geopolitical reinforcements. So basically, if you're from another country, and if the Americans don't like your culture, they will shit on it. They will make it as American as possible. They don't care about your culture, they don't care about your opinions, they don't even care about your product, about your message, about your story. And they don't even care about the fans. No matter if it's fans from America, from other countries, from the original country, they don't care about anyone. They only care about their opinions. And internalization. Internalization is the process that enables game localization to take place seamlessly. Internationalizing your game will empower its code, architecture, and user interface to process and render game content in multiple languages. The main idea is to eliminate the existence of any element in the code base that differs by local. So basically, if Japan has, I don't know, something that's only available in the Japanese culture, it doesn't matter for them. It has to be something that it's allowed internationally. Japan is not allowed to have their own identity, their own culture, their own story, and their own fan base. We must make everything American. Because let's be real, when they say they want everything to be internationalized, they mean to be Americanized. So sure, you can have your own culture, your own opinions, your own stories, as long as it's accepted by the American corporations. So Kevin Frame, when you say, the alt-right, only the alt-right want this. Just because somebody doesn't agree with your point of view, apparently they're alt-right. It doesn't mean that you are wrong and the fans don't like what work you do because it's shit. Because you don't tell the story of the writer, you tell your own story. No, that's not it. Must be because everybody is alt-right if it doesn't agree with me. And in reality, I don't like any political party. Because I don't care for them, I care for the people. I care for individuality.